Whoever drinks beer, he is quick to sleep. Whoever sleeps long does not sin. Whoever does not sin enters heaven. Thus, let us drink beer.
So what are we drinking? First beer, which we both mostly consumed by now.
Yeah, we are drinking the Oktoberfest lager from Tioga Sequoia Brewing Company. I don't like probably like half of the beers that Tioga Sequoia
You and I, Tioga Sequoia is not a good IPA house. I've had their flagship is Sherman IPA,
and it's popular.
I've had it. I've had it fresh, very fresh, and it's
better.
Decent. But it is not. I mean, it's not a beer that I'd like. If someone handed me one and that was all they had, then I'd be like, okay, I'll drink it.
I'm just saying that
we were disappointed when we had to drink it at the Pismo's restaurant.
Yeah. Well, and that helped me remind me that I don't like it because it had been years. And it used to be that it was like, all right, if they have Tioga Sequoia, if that's their IPA, I'm getting something else. Like I don't
understand.
I'm not getting an IPA.
They made arguably the greatest hazy IPA I've ever had in my life, and that was when hazies first became popular. And they had them. They did either 4 of them, or they just released them in 4 different cans. They were all Star Wars cans, and I remember when I got one of them, I just laughed my ass off. It was at Sequoia. John, our friend John, handed me one, and I started laughing. He goes, "What's so funny?" He goes, I said, "Do they have any clue how much trouble they can get themselves in by doing this? They can get sued out of existence if Disney's really cared." But it was fantastic, and it was one of those like, oh, if this is what hazies tastes like, then I'm all in.
Yeah.
But their regular IPAs are not great. They are better at lagers.
They are.
Their Red Wave is okay. It's not great, but it's decent. And then their Mountain Lager we've mentioned on the show before is fantastic. And this just seems like a modified, Marzened versioned up of it, and it's great.
Yeah, it's delicious. 5.5 ABV. I got to have it a couple weeks ago at the brewery.
Well done on the can too.
Yeah, the can's great.
It's classic.
Yeah, good Oktoberfest beer. So highly recommend trying that out. We'll be having another beer here pretty soon because we're pretty close to the end thereof. I don't have trivia for this evening. I kind of forgot about it. Sorry.
I might have a few What the X's for the first time in a while.
No. Yeah, no trivia this evening. I just got back from water polo game. So no bigs there. I will say this out loud to Andy, super listener Andy, and actually anybody else that's listening, because maybe you want to know this. I did listen to the Dirt album this week
by
Alice in Chains. Right?
Yes.
Dirt? Yeah. Okay. I thought it was good. I was like, I had talked to Andy a couple weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, I haven't really listened to Alice in Chains, and some of you might be like, okay, yes, I've listened to The Rooster. Yes, okay. Can we clarify that? I just wouldn't have been able to pick them out in a crowd of music where I'm like, okay, I've heard these songs before, but I wouldn't have been able to tell you who that was by or whatever. And then remember also that, like, you know, my dad graduated high school in 85. So, you know, the early 90s was actually more dominated by U2 in my household. If that was who my father clinged to in the early 90s, as opposed to, you know, switching over to grunge.
Yeah.
And so and even then my dad has kind of has now accepted grunge music, now living in Seattle, where it's kind of that's the Seattle sound, that whole kind of thing. But, you know, that's not what I grew up with. So Alice in Chains, my review of them was, I thought it was a great album. I thought it was good. I had texted Tim and I was like, man, there's a lot of rock elements, hard rock, late 80s or mid 80s rock and roll, kind of rock ballad, almost kind of elements to their music that I wasn't familiar with grunge music. So that was kind of interesting. So it was kind of cool to kind of experience that. But yeah, I would just say it's definitely different than Nirvana, but still in the same vein. There's still lots of similarities there, but also there's lots of differences. So yeah, it was kind of cool. We tried talking about what's the difference between.
Yeah, that's the problem. Grunge isn't really one thing.
Yeah, because I was like,
It's really it's three different kinds of genres.
because I hope nobody gets offended by this. I was like, I don't know, I'm not. Again, people get weird
It
about
is
their
what
music,
it is. So.
about their musical artists. I will say that what did I point out where I was like, I know the differences, but the double album by Guns N' Roses and the Dirt album, I'd say there's a lot of similarities between the styles of rock and roll that's being played, but yet Guns N' Roses is labeled as classic rock. Meanwhile, Alice in Chains might be classified as classic rock in some elements, but I mean, a lot of people like to attribute it to the grunge thing. And so, and mainly what I'm saying for that is Alice in Chains in that album had a lot of elements that were kind of like Guns N' Roses, where, you know, the lead singer is singing, they kind of have the opera voices where they harmonize on there, the kind of rock opera elements in there, which again, I didn't have a problem with. It was just kind of interesting listening to that and kind of going from there. So,
Ooh, there's a lot. Okay.
Sorry to derail our conversation again. I was actually just trying to fill time.
No, I mean, we don't really have a main topic tonight. So
actually,
we gonna be like
we do have a main topic tonight.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, we got to talk about censorship.
Oh, that's true. All right. Yeah, if I'm being honest, if we're all being honest here on the show, grunge isn't really a thing. It's like an invention. It's just a made-up genre for this bridge between the death of glam rock and where rock was going.
It's a countercultural.
And a lot of it's just, they're from Seattle, so they're grunge, when that doesn't really mean anything. Because as I told you, Nirvana's more punk-infused.
Yeah.
Most of grunge is just plain old rock-infused. You've got some older, like, OG grunge bands like, oh, shoot.
Don't ask me. Unless you tell me the
Mother Love Bone, who is more glam, prog rock, I would say, influenced. A little bit of punk. But, I mean, most of those bands, grunge is basically just rock. It's just rock, and the difference isn't really the music, it's the content of the lyrics.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We go from the ridiculous
music,
saccharine bullshit of the glam rock, which I still love to death.
Oh, for sure.
And the fun, sort of mostly pro-America 80s, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll stuff of the 80s. And then it turns, I think, because of cultural things going on. I think, you know, I think because latchkey kids, I think isolation from parents and stuff is a lot of what grunge is. And so the lyrics take a bleak thing, and now it's introspective rather than extrospective and fun. It's rehabilitative or contemplative or whining, if you want to call it that. And so it's really more about the lyrics. But I mean, Soundgarden's a little hard because Soundgarden, I think, started in 84, 85. So they actually started well before grunge became a thing. But they're rock. And then who else do we have? Stone Temple Pilots, 100% rock. There's no punk infused there. Mudhoney, they're considered grunge, but they're more like, if anything, they're kind of poppy and glammy. So, and then I just said Soundgarden. And what's the other one? What's the one with Billy, what's his name? Despite all my rage, I can...
Oh, that's Smashing Pumpkins.
Smashing Pumpkins is technically grunge. That's all rock, but with a little bit of, I don't know, proggy to it. So, of course, that's all 100% Billy Corgan. There's the famous, I don't know if it's legend or story, that the first album they did, they recorded the album, and then when the band Scaramouched out of the studio, he spent the next couple of days redoing everybody else's tracks himself because he didn't like the way it sounded.
That album,
and then the album got cut, and everyone's like, "That's not what I did." And he's like, "Yeah, it sounds better though, right?"
That album's like 23 songs, isn't it, or like 20?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
and he's exceptional. He's an exceptional twisted man. Which I guess he had a pretty rough childhood, and which his dad now takes credit for. Is like, you know, you wouldn't be a good musician if I hadn't put you through such a shitty childhood.
Wow.
Thanks, Dad.
Oh, you doubled down on the fucked up father award, didn't you? Holy hell. Oh my God.
Well, that's something you expect out of like a Brit. You wouldn't be so successful if I hadn't been such a fucking piece of shit father.
Yeah, that's fucking Jamie Tartt's dad and fucking Ted Lasso.
Exactly. You wouldn't be half the footy player if I hadn't been such a dick. So anyway, and I think, some of those bands didn't have anything. It's just, again, grunge was just, in a lot of ways, it's just a marketing thing. It was a way to sell plaid for 4 years.
Yeah.
And introduce the world.
The cotton industry was tanking.
Introduce the world to coffee shops.
They were like, listen, we got to sell more than jeans.
Somebody walked in on Fifth Avenue and said, or Madison Avenue, and said, all right, Levi's is sitting on a shit ton of plaid. They can't sell it. And I've got a up and coming coffee company called Starbucks in Seattle. How do we get this shit moving? Well, I have some weird music coming out of Seattle. Done.
Perfect.
What do we call it? I don't know. Seattle tends to be pretty rainy and it gets grungy. Done. We'll call it grunge.
That's right.
It gets grungy for the first couple minutes after it rains. Grunge. Done.
Perfect.
Okay. I do have a couple What the X's.
All right. Well, I'll go grab beer number 2. You want the pale ale or you want an Oktoberfest?
I don't care.
Awesome. Dodgers smacked this. 10-5. I just figured saw that right now. I forgot about it while I was coaching. Like, oh yeah, it's playoff baseball. My bad. Back to normal. Pale ale from Fieldwork.
Yeah, I hadn't ordered from Fieldwork in a while. Actually, I went on to Moonlight to order their Marzen, even though it was going to be a whole case of it, but I was flat of it, so
that'll be here.
No, and I was all ready to check out, and I was excited, and I was like, this is going to be a ridiculous amount of beer, but I'll hand it out to friends. It'll be wonderful, and then they don't ship it out of the county. You can only get it there. I was like, then why is it on your online store? So then I popped over to Fieldwork to see what they were selling, and they had their own Oktoberfest plus this one.
Nice. This is the Back to Normal Pale Ale. Do I have an ABV?
Again, flirting with the IP here.
Yeah.
Stealing the Back to the Future.
Oh, 5.5 ABV. No details.
Ooh, it's bitter. It's good. I enjoy it. Be a little better in the summer. Oh, it's still warm, though. Okay, I got 2 of these. So Netanyahu yesterday said he said in a press conference with Trump, the Bible says those who bless Israel will be blessed and those who curse Israel will be cursed.
Shut the fuck up. Okay. I don't even want to hear it. Did he literally just quote the Bible? The Hebrew Bible or the Bible?
He said the Bible says, because he's speaking to a Christian audience, so the Christian audience who's dumb enough to buy that crap.
Oh my gosh. The Jew gets up and tells people what the Bible says.
So if you're wondering where that comes from, I think we did this when Ted Cruz said the same dumb thing. It's from Genesis 12:3, and it's God talking to Abraham or Abram. At this point, I guess it's Abraham. I will bless those who bless you and curse him who curses you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. That's the promise he made to Abraham. And so...
Oh, guess what? Abraham had 2 sons, though.
He had 2 sons, one of which is credited to be Jewish, and one of them is credited to be Arab / the Muslim world. So
therefore...
Take that what you will, Bible thumper.
We should bless them both.
All right, and then the second one... This is from last month, but it's still worth bringing up real quick. So Keir Starmer, who's the Prime Minister of Great Britain, he's a moron, but whatever. He'd posted the Israeli government's decision to further escalate its offensive in Gaza is wrong, And we urge it to reconsider immediately. Every day the humanitarian crisis in Gaza worsens and hostages taken by Hamas are being held in appalling and inhumane conditions. Blah. We need a ceasefire, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's fine. You can disagree with that, but... So, Ambassador Mike Huckabee, former, I don't know if he's still a pastor. I'm sure he's not still a pastor, but used to be a pastor, very big church in Arkansas, considered a big movement in the religious right in the United States. He replies on X, so Israel is expected to surrender to Hamas and feed them even though Israeli hostages are being starved. Did UK surrender to Nazis and drop food to them? Actually, they did. You dumb fuck. They actually did. So, yes, we did drop food to Germans where they needed food. That is a fact. So you're wrong on that. Then this is where he doubles down. Again, former pastor, still a Bible-believing,
Yep.
I'm going to assume Christian. He's a Christian.
Yeah, this is disappointing.
Ever heard of Dresden, PM Starmer? That wasn't food you dropped. If you had been PM then, UK would be speaking German. So you bring up firebombing and killing tens of thousands of Germans.
And this is actually disappointing because actually I don't dislike Huckabee. Like, is he in a role that he should not be in? Yeah. Like, there's elements of Huckabee that I'm not a big fan of, but like, I've never gotten bad vibes from him where you get it with a lot of other politicians.
I also don't get vibes from him like you do from a lot of Christian celebrity pastors where he's in it for the money.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
He clearly had political aims because he wanted to run and ran for governor of Arkansas and all that. But I mean,
he was also on Fox News for a bit, right?
Yeah, after he was governor. I mean, he might have been in the first. No, I don't think he was. His daughter was in the first.
It just comes from a different. I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where it's like the world that you view is not the world of truth. And it's kind of hard. Like, I think that comes from a lot of people in religious, sections and in the United States. Sometimes we get to live in the Bible Belt for so long. And that was actually one of the reasons why we started this podcast, where it was like we couldn't see outside of the bubble.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're able to break through and you're like, oh man, no, this isn't how it's supposed to be at all. And you're like, I get where you're coming from. I know exactly where this comes from. Because again, what Huckabee is saying, I don't know if high school me would have said anything better, but also I'm a dumb teenager, but yet you're grown full adult and you are making these kinds of claims and this kind of stupid stuff. And you're just like, ooh, that doesn't. The
Dresden thing, that one set me off.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy to equate and to just be like, yeah, well, Dresden was justified is, wow, that's crazy. I was like, sure, okay, why did you bring that one up? Go bring up Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Just go do those. I was like, go justify any violence and sit there and say, oh, yep, well, if we didn't do that, then this would have happened. I was like, the slaughtering and murder of thousands of people I was like, yep, then that would have never happened. And then, just the cycle of hatred just continues and repeats itself.
Yeah.
Yep. I was like, we're just going to be A-okay with that.
Here's the thing people need to understand. Was it on the last episode? This was the last one or the one before we were like talking about this topic again, and I was bringing up international law, and you're understandably and kind of correct in some ways correctly, like, who the hell cares about international law? Like, what's somebody going to do about it? Like, war's war. It's all brutal anyway. Yes.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah. You're right.
And this isn't me like countering back to you. It's just pointing out the reason why we have this view in the United States because of all of our war movies and the books and everything else, and we won and the victors get to write the history. We have this view that we won the war and that was it. And what people need to understand is the current rules of and you can call them. It's fine. I don't have a problem with you saying rules of warfare are asinine. Once you start killing, you're killing. Part of me subscribes to that. I'm just pointing out this as a bit of history. One of the reasons why we have our current rules of war, international law, etc., that were rewritten after World War II is we didn't even like a lot of the things we had to do to win the war. And we wanted to write them out of warfare and say, you can't do this to civilians, you can't do that to civilians, you can't treat prisoners this way, you can't do these certain... So there were things both sides, including us. It wasn't that we rewrote the rules because the Germans or the Japanese or the Russians even were doing certain things. No, there's even things we did, and we said, we don't ever want to fight another war like that. We don't want to ever fight another war like World War I. And so when Israel and the United States, as well as Russia and other countries, are throwing away our agreed to current rules of warfare, at the end of on the one level, that was inevitable. That was part of a world where we were in a Cold War. No one's going to war because of nuclear weapons, etc. But on the other hand, just understand and lament the equilibrium we'd kind of hit where we weren't doing certain things, and that's being lost.
Yeah. I will say, though, it is, and again, when I talked about the rules of war kind of stuff, that's just more of on a philosophical level where it's just like, okay, like rules are fucking arbitrary. Like,
no, I totally agree with you.
No, I know.
And
I know.
Part of
me
says, if you are going to go to war, be as brutal about it and get it over with as quickly as possible for everybody on both sides.
Yeah. And I mean, and that was one of the things that Vietnam, you know, their military was like, I was like, we all of a sudden became the British in Vietnam. When the Brits
We've been like the British ever since.
Yeah,
we
I know.
Just bungle our way into one thing after another.
But I'm saying the Brits get to the United States, and they're just like, and the United States are fighting guerrilla tactics, and they're just like, this isn't fucking worth it.
Oh, they faced that in South Africa against the Boers.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
faced
They're
it
just
against
like,
the Indians in India after the war.
We're out of this. And so the United States...
They faced it in Palestine with both the Palestinians and the Jews who'd moved in, the Zionists.
And the United States...
You cannot win a guerrilla war if you're the occupier. There has never been an insurgency that's been defeated.
Yeah, we go into Vietnam. And they were extremely smart. They were just like, yeah, we actually don't even care about killing you. We just want to maim you. So like a lot of their traps and a lot of the things that they would set up was actually just to fucking remove the testicles off of a guy.
That's why we use the caliber bullet we use. It's not to kill, it's to maim, because somebody at the Pentagon, I think it was the Rand Corporation, sat down and did a study and said, you're better off. You waste X amount of resources behind the line dealing with wounded than you do with dead. And so that's why the M16, the M4 uses that caliber bullet instead of what we used in the M1 Garand, which was closer to, I think, like a 30 cal bullet.
Yeah. Because
some bean counter at a think tank said, no, it's actually better if we just wound a bunch of people because it chews up resources.
Yeah, because 5 or 6 people have to take care of that person. Yep. I was like, they have to carry them out of wherever it is. I was like, and especially if
they spread disease.
Yep. And so, but that's the Vietnam exposed that in us, and we were just like, fuck it. We don't want to be a part of this. So then we just carpet bombed the fuck out of the country, napalm shit out of it. You know, that kind of stuff. Listen, again, when it comes to war, I'm just sitting there and saying, okay, the rules kind of stuff doesn't, whatever.
I agree. I just wanted to add some historical context as how we got here.
Yeah, you're fine.
Emphasizing those rules were because we did things. We also, because that's what we have this idea that we were all the good guys. The Yankees won, and there were things we did that we didn't even like.
Oh yeah. Well, actually,
we saw what we did to fucking Dresden, and we saw what we did to Tokyo, and we said, Yeah, let's not do that again.
Yeah, but it's so funny that like you can't help but sit there and be like, man, dude, the United States literally was like, there's like playground rules. We were like, no tag backsies.
Well, that's true.
We're gonna drop 2 atom bombs. All right, that's it. Nobody's allowed to do that ever again.
Oh,
just
absolutely.
us. Just us. We're gonna commit all these war crimes and just be like, all right, no tag backsies. And, that was atrocious. That should never happen again. Nobody's allowed to use that on us.
Can you imagine the guy who had to? I mean, it's pretty famous now. Oppenheimer and a lot of the guys who created the bomb regretted it. Can you imagine the dude who came up with the idea of firebombing Tokyo? Said like, 70% of the homes in Tokyo are wood-based. If we dropped accelerant on it, we might get a pretty good outcome. And then they actually did it. He was like, fuck, I was just spitballing there. Like, I got to answer to that. I got to answer for that.
No, I've seen more movies. That guy in the room doesn't care. He's got 5 scars on his face.
He's Mike Myers in Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
If we just took some petrol and dropped it on Tokyo, it's all one big matchstick.
Yeah.
Be fantastic. Bye bye zip ahead. Is that what you call them Americans? Yes.
So, yeah, I disappointed in Huckabee for that comment.
He needs to stay out of it. He needs to stay out of it.
100%.
Or at least don't say that. But
well, and actually, this brings us to our topic for this evening. We're going to be talking
let's just make this a long one, as long as we can.
Oh, okay.
Because it's hard to record. So before we get to the main topic, do you have any thoughts on the Charlie Kirk memorial? You don't have to say anything. I don't know that I'm going to say anything. I'm just wondering if you do. I do have one thought that I don't think we discussed from the whole Charlie Kirk murder subsequent days that I want to point out, because I'm kind of calling myself out, I think.
The only thing is, and I mean, like, Charlie might have wanted it that way, so, like, I don't have any... I just don't make it political, but then they did. I don't think that Vance necessarily made it super political, but Trump definitely did.
Oh, Trump was an abomination.
Yeah, I was like, what do you think?
Trump was an abomination. I think a lot of they shouldn't have had the cabinet and all that up there. Tucker did a hell of a job. I really like what Tucker had to say.
Yeah, I didn't have.
And the irony is Tucker got accused of being an anti-Semite after his speech.
Whatever. I'm just saying it
was a little too stylized for me.
Yeah.
When the wife came out, the widow came out, and they had like fireworks going on, I was like, what are we doing here? This is what was this, a WWE funeral? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But I don't think she had anything to do with it. I think I think someone just turned on a switch for big event and they did it. I initially was put off that it was on a Sunday, and I kind of murmured it to my wife and maybe Nolan. And then I thought later, like, you know what? It's Sunday. It's football season. They probably wanted to do it in Arizona at that football stadium. The Cardinals were playing in Los Angeles that week. They probably practiced in that stadium. So Sunday, they basically probably called the Cardinals up, and the Cardinals said, if you want to do it, you can do it on Sunday. Otherwise, it's booked. And they're like, all right, we'll do it on Sunday. I would have preferred it on a Friday night or a Thursday night. Sunday was, like I said, it was a little like, who does a memorial on Sunday? But again, like I said, the more I thought about it, it was just pure logistics of trying to throw that thing together at the last moment.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, he meant a lot to a lot of people. Again, I've already disclosed on this podcast, I don't understand how he could mean as much as he did to a lot of people. But again, that's how that goes. I thought that, again, that's not how I want to go, or that's not how I would want my funeral to go. But again, at the end of the day, we've already talked about on the show that funerals aren't meant for us. They're meant for the people that are left behind. And so as long as those people believe that that was a good representation of Charlie and they felt like it was honorable and whatever, then that's what's important to me, because those are the people that are needing comfort in that moment. And I hope that his kids look back on it and they say that even if Trump made an ass of himself up there and made a mockery of it, they'll still sit there and say, we were glad that the president honored my father's death, and the same from his wife and that kind of stuff. And that he took the time to come out here and do this and whatever.
First 45 minutes, I didn't see it, but my mom and other people texted me. First 45 minutes were incredible worship music and a couple homilies, including, like I said, I watched Tucker's. His was just, he apparently got up that morning and told his wife at the hotel, I'm not talking politics. I'm just going to talk about Jesus because, one, that's what Charlie would want, and two, that's what I should do anyway. This is a dude's memorial. And so he went up and winged his thing about what he said was great. If you didn't hear what he had to say, he went up, he told a story about Jesus being killed because he spoke truth and kind of awkwardly connected that to Charlie, which then got him accused of being an anti-Semite because the Jews the Zionists said he was accusing the Jews of killing Jesus. And so that got into a ridiculous food fight online. And then I'm not going to deal with that. And then he said, the message of the gospel is I'm supposed to repent and deal with me. And that's what I call everyone to do. We spend all of our time in politics and all our time in this country telling everybody else what's wrong with them and why they're bad and this, that, and the other. And he said, I challenge everyone to listen to the gospel, look inside, and deal with you first and repent for what you do and deal with that. And I thought, jeez, I told Danica, if you had told me that squeaky little Alex P. Keaton from 1994 on CNN wearing his bow ties would be giving a straight up gospel message in 2025, I'd call you nuts and say, you need to get off stop drinking or taking the peyote. So it's quite impressive to see Tucker turn that way. And then we have to give the wife credit for standing up there and saying that she forgave the shooter. So that was a big moment. So
100%.
I saw some people say, I don't know if she's sincere. Don't go there. If she's not sincere, that's between her and Jesus and God. So I'm not going there. She said what needed to be said. It seemed challenging for her to say it. So that's why I think it was genuine. She, even in the moment, didn't seem like she wanted to say it. It was hard to get it out. And she was committing to, I forgive you. And we've mentioned several times on the show the Amish who forgave the shooters of one of their schools and blew everyone's mind. So give her credit for doing that. So,
I mean, we're going to get to that in a minute tonight, a little bit further down the road as to sincerity or not. But
I have one more thing, and this is a challenge for me too. If you're listening to this, how many of you listening to this when you found out Charlie was shot or when Trump was shot once or twice thought to yourself, oh, I hope it wasn't someone on my side, or, oh, I hope it was somebody on the other side politically? And I think if we're being honest, a lot of us had that thought. And my challenge to myself and everyone listening is, let's excise that brain exercise from our system. We need to stop doing that because frankly, it doesn't care. It doesn't matter. And it's just feeding into the political war that you and I, Colton, are trying to get away from. And so this knee-jerk reaction of, oh boy, hope it wasn't some crazy right-winger, or oh boy, I bet it was some crackpot progressive who did it. That should be the last thing on our mind. And as soon as we hear it, we need to say, devil, get behind me. And I'm being honest. I had the same thought, and it's no good. All it is feeding into the bullshit. And so I thought about that like a week later I was hearing somebody talk about how they felt relieved when they heard it wasn't like a Nick Fuentes farther right person who was upset at Charlie about something. And I thought, boy, how warped are we that we're just like praying that it's somebody for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. So our political side looks good or doesn't look bad. ...
And that's where we get to Jimmy Kimmel.
Now we get to Jimmy Kimmel. which has now been made a little more difficult because he clearly wasn't kicked off the air by the FCC because he's back on the air. But
Well,
you tee it up.
I mean, so here's the thing. So we have Charlie Kirk gets shot, dies. Kimmel makes his joke on, was that like Monday or Tuesday? And the thing is with Kimmel's joke, like, okay, one, I don't believe, and I've said it multiple times on the show, I don't believe in things being sacred. And so I don't think that anybody can't ever at any time make a joke about something. And I mean, and this is where comedians talk about this, where they say the most insulting thing that you can do to a comedian is not laugh. And there was a lot of this that came out after Chris Rock getting slapped, where a lot of comedians were just like, dude, what the hell? This is your response. This is how, things happen. We're just like, you're allowed to get physically violent. And then, you had the thing that happened with Dave Chappelle 6 months later where he gets attacked on stage. And so again, there's kind of this idea of what happens with comedians and that kind of stuff. And we get down to Charlie Kirk gets shot. Kimmel makes his statement, and his statement isn't funny. Like, at least I didn't find it funny.
I don't even know if he was being funny. I think he was just saying that's what he thought.
I think he was just saying it. And here's the thing is, I mean, is it insensitive in the moment to say? Sure. I was like, there are a shit ton of jokes that can be made out there. I was like, is it insensitive on the Hollywood roast of Justin Bieber for somebody to sit there, for people to be sitting there making fun of fucking, what's his name from Saturday Night Live's dad for dying in 9/11 as a firefighter?
Oh, I forgot that.
What is his name? Pete Davidson. I was like,
oh, Pete Davidson's dad died in 9/11?
Yeah, as a firefighter.
Oh, that explains Pete. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, now I understand.
His dad was a Staten Island fucking firefighter.
Oh, well, now I understand why Pete's Pete.
Yeah.
I mean, I already kind of started to feel sorry for him, and then he gotten cleaned up, and I was like, buddy. And then now I'm like, oh, buddy. Now I understand.
Yeah. So, like,
I mean, his friend, what's the dude from Chicago, wrote for Saturday Night Live, does stand up. He doesn't have an excuse. He grew up in a upper middle class Chicago home. Anyway,
yeah, no, Pete Davidson is from Staten Island and is very much Staten Island, because what's the other guy that's on there is married to Scarlett Johansson that's from Staten Island, but
Staten Island's its own thing.
Yeah, but what's his name?
It's working class. It's where a lot of the cops and firefighters work, and it has kind of like this. It's like that's where all the white people moved to when they got driven out of the lower middle class
Yeah.
got driven off out of the boroughs.
Yeah, and that's why Pete Davidson has the movie King of Staten Island. But
John Mulaney was what I was trying to think of.
Oh yeah,
who has no excuse for being an addict. He's just warped.
Yeah,
he's just a warped 80s kid.
So
90s kid.
So again, like, is that insensitive? I was like, I don't know. At what point do we sit there and say, like, we can start making jokes about things? Like, again, it's comedians. They're going to sit there and continue the line. Again, like I said, one of the things that you can do is laugh or not laugh. And again, he was making a statement. I don't think he was being serious about the statement. You could sit there. Was it insensitive in the moment? Yeah. Depends on where you're from, what your ties are. But I do think, and I mean, like, we're going to get into this in a minute. I do think that at some point we need to have a conversation before things get way too out of hand as to what exactly does freedom of speech look like in our country on all platforms of speech. The founding fathers, the guys all in that room, had no idea what algorithms, social media, and I mean, like, they experienced propaganda. And again, that's one of the most iconic pieces of propaganda that that people are supposed to look at is actually a pro-American piece of propaganda during the Revolutionary War, the massacre, the Boston Massacre, which is where two Americans died after they started a fight against British soldiers. Right. And so that everybody's like, look at this piece of rhetoric where, again, nobody knows the actual story. But now, after all the dust is settled, after we've looked at the history of it, a bunch of protesters got out there and were protesting the British taxation. They picked up rocks and started throwing them at British soldiers, and they fired into the crowd to get the people to disperse, and they killed 2 people. But the presses all read throughout the colonies as the Boston Massacre, where again 2 people died. Which again, I'm not taking away from 2 people dying. That is sad, but again, it's this idea of rhetoric and where again
let's also throw in there before and after the Revolution, well after the Revolution, even through Abraham Lincoln, the political satire was much more savage than today. Today, we act like a bunch of Victorians about, oh, you can't talk about the president that way. They savaged people.
Oh yeah, look at the cartoon drawings.
Yeah, I mean they depicted Lincoln as an ape.
Yeah,
there was the Jeffersonians said really terrible things about Adams. The Adams sect group said really terrible things about Jefferson, and it was all very mocking and unflattering and stuff today that would, we get our panties in the wad about, oh, the president tweeted this, and I'm like, it's not really that much different than crazy stuff.
Actually, my issue is actually when the president gets his fucking panties in a twad.
Oh, absolutely.
I was like, that's the shit that pisses me off.
So, and so
what I'm saying is, so again, there's all this kind of idea, but I do think that we need to evaluate what does freedom of speech look like in our country, because lots of people have lots of different ideas about what freedom of speech looks like. And so, because we do believe, and we talked about it on this podcast, is that we do believe that Charlie Kirk died. Charlie Kirk's death was more political, and it was based off of, and I was like, correct me if I'm wrong as to what you're thinking, but again, based off of this isolation that has happened in our country, where I believe that the person that killed Charlie Kirk believed that Charlie Kirk was evil. But I believe that because of the rhetoric for so long that has now created this divide to where people have sat there and said, well, you're a Nazi, or you're supporting this or whatever. And so therefore, again, in his mind, or in other people's mind, that is an evil person, and the world will be better without that evil person in it.
Yeah, it's my phrase that I use, taken from Rene Girard, the scapegoating, or what you very loosely take from the Bible, goats and the sheep. And when we start demonizing the other side to the point where we dehumanize them, and it's not only dehumanizing them, but it would be a holy act for me to act and take that person out and excise them from society. When you're using terms like Hitler, then I get uncomfortable when both sides say your language led to some kind of violence. That's my normal reaction. It's like, oh, grow up. That person had but we started using the Hitler language around 2003, 2004 with Bush, and it just settled into the discourse. The right flirted with the commie talk, but commie talk's different than the Hitler talk. I mean, we didn't go assassinate or look to assassinate Stalin.
No, we
just need to get rid of the Nazi and the Hitler talk and all that. That opens up a whole can of worms again, where our society is geared towards. That is the holy act of being an American, is going and killing Nazis and fascists and
that's literally the most evil thing that people can't imagine. Like,
I read somebody was really smart on X this week and said that basically Satan got replaced by Hitler. They said it. They said it Seriously, and it was a long post, and they said it very succinctly, and I was like, you are fucking correct. Once we got God out of the conversation, you had to find somebody to demonize. If you can't have Satan without God, so who do we replace him with? The boogeyman of the world is Hitler. And so when you go around calling...
Yeah, people hiss. Like, you bring up Hitler, and people...
Yeah.
Like, it's this whole...
So you gotta stop with that.
He's the most evil thing that has ever happened in the world. Is Hitler. And what's always so funny is that
if I run around and said, if
well, it's funny that you bring up Stalin, because it's so funny because, people talk about the whole Hitler thing, and then people are, if you have like a historian that's done like the history research, they're like, well, they're like, well, Stalin was actually way worse than Hitler was.
Well, that's true.
I know, but that's always the funny part.
I mean, if you really want to throw, if you're really historically trying to throw shade at someone, you call him either Mao or Pol Pot, because Mao killed more even than Stalin, and then you throw Pol Pot, who only killed 2 to 3 million, but he liquidated 25% of his population.
But and also on the same realm, I mean, like, and we idolize random ass things in our country where it's like, okay, we talk about Hitler or whatever and the evil, terrible things. Imagine 500 years from now, all of a sudden we got the Nazis are a fucking football team because, I mean, we got pirates, Buccaneers, Vikings, like, like... That
would make for a cool helmet.
Yeah, the Nazi helmets, the KKK, there you go, like...
It's a freedom of ideas, man. It's a melting pot of ideas.
Yeah, can you imagine if
that KKK team would be 0-12 every year, 0-17. I don't know how well the all white team would do.
Some French,
they wouldn't even allow Catholics on the team. It'd just be a whole bunch of Protestants. It'd be terrible.
I was like, some Spanish island out there in the middle of nowhere is just fucking. They're like, what do you mean you guys call yourself the pirates? What the hell? I was like, golly. Anyways, so again, I do think that we need to have a conversation about the freedom of speech, which I do want to take us there at some point. But
we're there. You're teeing it up. Let's go.
Well, I know, but I also want to kind of talk about Jimmy Kimmel for a second, because I feel like the Jimmy Kimmel thing is kind of I feel like there's a bigger problem going on.
I think Kimmel's a less problem than there's bigger problems.
Yes. And so I just want to say this about Kimmel. He made a joke, or not a joke. He just made a statement, blah, blah, blah. Was it untimely? Sure. Whatever. He gets taken off air. He comes back. And this is actually what I want to say. If you saw, did you see Jimmy's apology?
I saw his non-apology. I don't think he apologized. It was one of those, if you were offended by the thing that I said that wasn't offensive, I'm sorry.
I mean, he said, you either like me or you don't. And
well, that's fair.
Yeah. But then he did go on to say, and I truly believe what he said, where again, when it comes to his statement, I think he had every right within all the rights of the Constitution to say whatever it is that he said. Was it insensitive? Sure. And Disney loves to cover their ass. So it was not surprising that he got pulled from air for me. But I believed what he said. And you said this earlier where it was like, you were talking about the wife, where it's like, that's between her and God. And I'm
just parsing his words. I'm not. I'm
saying when Jimmy said, but like some people are like, well, he's from Hollywood, and so he can put on this act or whatever. Mm-mm. He choked up when he sat there and said, "I would."
That's not Jimmy.
Where he was like, I never meant to make light of the death of a young man who I felt like was taken from this earth way before.
No, he stepped his foot in it and made a dumb comment. And then, so I don't think he meant to make light of it. In fact, I think he was trying to not make light of it. I think he was grossly making a political
and
statement.
What you had said, where it was like, and that's why I
was also,
and
then ended up being grossly wrong because he was saying it was a far right winger when it actually ended up again. He made the error of what I just before what I predicated this
and that's
conversation
what I was saying.
on.
I was like, and that's the transition where it was like he made that error, but he got up and he said that this is not what I was trying to do. And I don't think he apologized for. Well, no, he did say I wasn't trying to put that on anybody. And he's like, and I didn't mean to make light of any of that. This was a sick individual, and I should have just treated it as such. Where this is somebody who's sick, and we can sit there and say that it was left versus right, but ultimately, at the end of the day, that is somebody who has a warped sense of humanity or whatever. And so, therefore, in my opinion, for anybody that's sitting there, you have to, and especially as Christians, I think we need to accept Jimmy Kimmel's apology and you need to move on. I was like, he did the right thing. He came out. He said it. In my opinion, I felt like he was sincere in what he was saying. And so let's move on.
Look, Jimmy's been in my life since I was 25. I remember when Jimmy got started. Jimmy started out as an intern on the Kevin and Bean show on K-Rock.
97.
Oh, fuck. 97.1 KROQ. And then transitioned to be the sports guy. And he was doing this. So he's doing sports reports for Kevin and Bean. And then he mouthed off to a boxer. And they agreed to do a charity fight. I'm going with this somewhere. I'm telling all this.
Was it what's the guy that Eddie Murphy has his bit about? Was it something Holmes? Was it?
It might have been Holmes. It was like an old boxer, but he mouthed off to somebody. So they decided to do, because Jimmy doesn't know anything about boxing. So they sign him up for boxing classes at a boxing gym in, I believe, Canoga Park, which is part of the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles. And guess who's one of the coaches there? Adam Carolla.
Oh.
So Carolla coaches him. And in all of the coaching that he's doing, the show finds out how funny Carolla is. And so Carolla starts calling in on Fridays as Mr. Burcham, which is this Vietnam vet with PTSD shop teacher who teaches at, I think, Van Nuys High School. And because Carolla had done construction for years, knew all of the terms for all of the jigsaw and the blah, blah, blah. And it was hilarious. And they become friends, and then they go off, they become bigger and bigger on Kevin and Bean, and then they go start the Man Show and all that. So I say all that. I've always enjoyed Jimmy.
I like Jimmy.
And at some point, I think Jimmy, here's what happens. If you're listening to this and you find actors, Hollywood people frustrating about their politics, here's the thing you have to understand. Somebody said this years ago. I don't remember who it was. You have to understand these people worked really hard, paycheck to paycheck, working interns at radio stations.
It's the reason why you don't let your kids go be like, I want to go be a movie star.
Waiting tables and all this stuff, and then they hit big. And the problem is with a lot of them is they think because it happened to, they tell everybody because it happened that it's really hard to do, and that it's just like a once in a lifetime thing. But their brain really is like, oh, if it could happen to me, it can happen to anybody. And what they want out of their left-wing politics is for everyone to have that opportunity, and they think the government can help. And so Jimmy turns into this guy who's weeping on the air about healthcare and all this other stuff that he does that I don't agree with, but I think he comes from a big heart. My advice to Jimmy is just be funny. No one's turning into that show at 11:30 for a fucking political lecture. So just leave it out. But that's just a career thing, and he can figure that out. But I agree with you. He came back on the air. They worked it out. You know, I saw plenty of stuff online about people still wanting to scalp. I'm like, move on. Who cares?
Move on. Again, I don't feel like what
2 days ago you were mocking how bad his ratings are. So if you really believe it, then why are you wasting all this time over a guy who's got 2 million people watching him every night? Who cares?
Well, and also at the same time, I think as Christians, where it's like you have to sit there and you have to accept his apology. I was like, if you're a Christian and you're listening to that, I was like, I'm not saying that you have to sit there and watch him. Remember, that's not what I'm saying. But you gotta
just be like, all right, fine, apologize, move on.
And let's be honest, you weren't watching him in the first place.
No.
I was like, he's been political for a long, long time. Everybody knows how Jimmy is. And I like Jimmy. I don't necessarily agree with him politically, but again,
I don't watch it. I don't watch his show, but that's not selective. I don't watch any of those.
Yeah, no.
I stopped watching.
And I was like, I've seen clips of Jimmy.
It's Jimmy's no different than the other Jimmy on NBC. I'll see clips.
Yeah, I don't watch Fallon. I don't watch.
No.
And I love Seth Meyers. I loved him on fucking.
I love Mr. Ferguson, who was on at 12:30 or whatever night, the Scottish dude on late night CBS.
Yeah.
He's Craig Ferguson. He's hilarious. And before that one, it was the other Craig Kilborn. Craig Kilborn's one of the funniest people on the planet, but I don't watch those shows.
I just don't watch. I don't watch night shows.
I don't care about celebrities coming on and telling me about their new show and all that kind of stuff.
It's like a New York thing. Maybe they just like it over there. But
there's a lot of people who really like celebrity and celebrity stardom and all that, and they like wallowing in all that. I'll watch clips of people. What's really funny to watch is
Jimmy Fallon working with some of those people.
No, is the redhead Conan with what's his name, who was on Justified and coolest man in Hollywood.
Damn it. I don't watch Conan. I don't watch.
Anyway, they're hilarious because they're best friends, and he's on their show he's on a show like every 6 weeks, and they both make fun of each other.
Well, and who's the other one?
Hey Siri, who starred in Justified?
Who's
Andy? I know you know who it is.
Who's the one that's
Justified features Timothy Oliphant, Walton Goggins.
Timothy Oliphant.
Oh yeah, I totally know who that is. Who's the one that's actually wrapping up after this year is?
Oh, the one on CBS. I can't remember his name. The one who started out on Jon Stewart show.
Yeah, what is?
I can't remember. He's not funny. He was never funny. He was funny when he was doing his dumb Republican shtick thing on Jon Stewart, but he's not been up. His regular show's not been funny.
I don't have any.
He's a pontificating. Again, you're supposed to be lighthearted and doing a fun show on that thing. So,
well, it's hard also to compete with Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy actually has found his stride in what he's doing, where it's like his celebrities come on, they play silly, funny games. The only other person that I think competes with him is, although I haven't seen anything from his show in a while, he might have gotten where it's just like, it might have just been because he was British. What was the name of the?
Oh, the fat dude.
Yeah.
The one who, the only thing, he had the shtick where they're singing in the cars.
Yes.
Corden. James Corden.
Yeah. I was like, Jimmy has found a stride where it's like, all right, we have.
Jimmy just laughs at everything, which then becomes infectious.
Yeah,
which is what he was on Saturday Night Live.
But everybody comes out and they play games. It's just him and a celebrity having fun together, and people love that shit.
I will say his little bit that he did, I don't know, probably 10 years now with. Damn it, I'm so bad with names. That is the part of my brain that's just dying slowly or quickly. Who's the 4 foot little singer with whose hair's, damn it, Ariana Grande, when they had her on
and she did all
of her impersonations.
Oh yeah, that was incredible.
And I was like, that was the first time I'd really heard her other than her pop music, which I'm not a fan of. I mean, it's just because it's
and he's inspired.
It's not my style of pop. It's just like all that stuff just sounds. It's like a dog listening to certain things. Like it goes from one ear out the other. I'm not impressed by it. It's not like it's not impressive. It just doesn't. When she got on there and started doing like
Christina Aguilera
and like Barbara Streisand or whatever, I'm like, holy shit, this girl is talented. You need to get off your contract and do what Lady Gaga's doing and do your own thing.
Yeah, but from Jimmy Fallon, there's now been like they now have a TV show that's the musical impressions or whatever, where they do like a bunch of stuff with that, and that has episodes. There's another one where it's just celebrities get on and they just do the lip sync battles with each other. Again, Jimmy has found that doing those games is what brings about what people want to see and people want to consume, and so he's done a really good job.
He'll always have mad respect for me for having Questlove on there, so as his band. So.
Oh yeah, the Roots on there is great. But again, it's one, and the guy that we were talking about on CBS, what is
James Corden?
No.
Oh, the other guy.
That guy knows Lord of the Rings more than
Oh, he
anybody else.
does?
Dude, that guy knows so much. I'm like, golly, I'm so jealous.
That's funny you mentioned that. I just watched the thing. It was like 15 minutes by some Brit today about what happened after the Lord of the Rings.
That guy knows so much Lord of the Rings.
And it was all
shit.
based on stuff. It was all stuff based on what Tolkien had written.
Yeah.
But I was like, I vaguely think I have a remembrance of this. But yeah, he went in like beat for beat, like what happened with the Shire, what happened with all the characters, and then generally what happened with Middle Earth and what the symbolism was. And I was like, okay, yeah, kind of needed that.
Yep. So, anyways,
I will say this as we transition to just a bigger topic of wrap up Kimmel and then talk a bigger. Well, I think this gets to the bigger thing. Philosophically, so we have these. So, okay, we have a First Amendment. And just to be clear, if anyone's listening to this, the First Amendment really only pertains to how the government can regulate speech. It has nothing to do with how private actors can handle speech. Now, that's not really the case. Things have grown out of the law, so there are limitations on what even private actors can do versus other private actors in terms of regulating their speech. But generally speaking, the First Amendment doesn't, if your boss doesn't like something you said, he can fire you. We can talk more about that in a minute, as I think where Colton's taking this. So that said, if you're Kimmel and you're on a show and it's not doing too well, then maybe you shouldn't open up your mouth and say something like that. The problem with our rights is it's a two-handed thing. It's one, the government or your work needs to be responsible for exercising the power that they have. This is my problem. So we're at a point where I think you certainly would agree. I came out mad as hell, and I said it last time on the last podcast. I was mad, and I said there was righteous anger, and I came out and said, fuck everybody who's saying nasty shit. I don't give a damn about them getting fired and stuff. And you correctly kind of, well, you weren't, I don't think you were rebutting me. You just said, no, I don't think people we should have grace if we want to have grace. And so the response shouldn't be just in firing people from their teacher jobs or whatever. And which is why, if you didn't catch at the end when I said something about if you agreed with Colton calling me out for being a hypocrite, you can go to hell. That's what I was referring to. I wasn't being a hypocrite. I just changed my mind. And I still have changed my mind. I agree with you, Colton. We as a society need to figure out this whole social media thing. And so on the one hand, I feel like I have to say this a lot. Not on this show. I actually just said this 3 weeks ago at the brewery. Somebody asked me about some big question, and I said, we have to continually remind ourselves that we're in a period of profound technological changes, and we all tell ourselves that, and we believe it. It's not like I don't think we believe it, but we don't fully understand how big of a technological change we're at. We're basically going through what the church went through with the printing press, where all of a sudden you're allowed to say what you want or print where you want if you got money. And so now things are being said, and it's like, all right, well, I said it. Now there's consequences. And in those cases, you might have been drowned or burned at the stake or something like that. We now have this possibility where you can just say what you want. And I would say two things need to happen. One, we need to get away. And I'm just saying,
well, and our president's on trial for it. As soon as his presidency is over, he's back to his trial about whether or not what he did, whether his tweets on January whatever, was it January 10th?
January 6th.
6th. Okay. 6th was my original guess, but then I was like, maybe it was 10th. Were his tweets on January 6th? Are those tweets, are those words that a president is allowed to do? And again, you're talking about responsibility with a lot of that. Again, so then what is our own individual responsibility? I mean, again, everybody always says, okay, you can't say fire in a crowded room or whatever. You can't do this. You can't yell bomb on a plane. because again, it causes.
Actually,
No, I know, but that's the point. Where it's like,
actually, that's not what the Supreme. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be the guy. Actually, the Supreme Court didn't say. They did say that you can't say fire in a crowded theater, and then they reversed themselves correctly like 15 years later. But anyway, yes, you're correct. There are certain things we can't. Here's my rule. Here's my rule. If your thumbs are on your phone, you need to think to yourself, and I'm serious about this rule. Would I say this to a stranger at a bar and wonder I might get punched or thrown out or drink thrown in my face or something else? Because I think a lot of the shit that we say to each other online, we would never say to a person or a person to their face or say in a room full of strangers. And that's what gets us into trouble. And we throw it out there, and then it gets us into trouble. And then we have the overreaction where a school district comes in and says to a teacher, you said that, so we're going to fire you, which I have a lot of problems with. It's like, I can say whatever the hell I want. Just because I work for you doesn't mean then you get to police my speech whenever I say it. Yeah. I didn't say it. I didn't say it on work hours. I didn't tweet it out on a company handle. I didn't say it using company email. I didn't use it saying on a company. I was saying it as a private citizen, and you don't. Frankly, I understand why schools are in an even worse position. I mean, you hear all the time, kids got in trouble because they said something at home, and the school gets called in. And I'm like, my inclination as a parent is that that's not your fucking problem. Well, it is kind of my problem because I had to worry about security and these other things. And you're kind of like, I get it, but it's not. It's after 3:00. He's not under your supervision. He's under mine now.
Yeah, so to put that in perspective, like, why is it that school is having to moderate the fact that some girl decided to send her nudes to some teenage boys, and now that's getting passed around? Why is that the school's responsibility to take care of?
Because we've made it the school's responsibility.
Right?
And everyone's just like, okay. And then you have the crazy person who comes and says, that's my problem. You can't punish my kid for that. They're a dumbass. Or they could even say like, I don't give a shit about that. And you're like, all right. But the school's got to get involved because you're causing a distraction or disruption at school.
Yep. Yeah.
Which then the school can be held liable by other parents.
Well, then actually,
is what the business thing is. Well, if I don't do something because so-and-so said that she really hated Charlie Kirk and he deserved everything he got, and he was against gun control, and boy, doesn't he wish guns were controlled now, and now my best customers are complaining about it. No one wants to be a leader. No one wants just to stand up and say, Sally Sue said a few things. We don't agree them as a company, but we support our we have a diverse company. Sometimes they say things, and if Sally Sue gets upset because Merrill Lynch didn't like what she had to say, that's now Sally Sue's problem because she decided to put all of her opinions out there. But do we really need to? I got all kinds of crazy people who work for me.
Yeah,
and I put up with it.
Again, are we being...
Because it's not my business. And if someone comes to me and says, well, do you want them representing Icon? Did they say it at the racetrack or the football game? No. Then who the hell cares? Then block them on X like everybody else. Or how about this? Get off fucking X and Facebook and join the real world.
Yeah, can we be restorative? Like, again, that's one of the problems that I have with... Okay, so like one of my examples that I use, and I think I've used several times on this podcast, like, I remember when James Gunn got let go from the Guardians of the Galaxy thing because he made an anti-LGBTQIA plus comment in fucking 2008 or something, and it was 2018, and it was like, dude, what the hell? Dude, it's been 10 years. I don't want to be judged based off of public things that I had perceived the world at 10 years ago. Like, please don't judge me based off of the way that I viewed the world 10 years ago. And I mean, and here's the thing but I will say is I do think that we have freedom of speech, and people are always going to do what they're going to do. But I do think that we need to, and what Tim and I have talked about this evening is we have to be responsible. We have to be responsible with it. And especially with the addition of social media and everything that's going on, it feels like responsibility has gone out the window. And he's talking about in a bar, would you say that? And I know that there's a lot of you out there that are just like, and he said a stranger, and there's a lot of you out there that don't give a fuck either way. You're just like, yeah, if it was a stranger in a bar, I'd tell them straight up to their face, I fucking hate homosexuals. And just like, be like, yeah, I fucking hate them. And it's just like, but actually what I go for is more of, again, it's just one doesn't need to be said, because there's a lot of, that's also one of the things that I wish that I could eliminate about social media. So many times out there, everybody's just posting shit that nobody needed to fucking say. Not feeling it? Or what I said.
No. You're good. You're tracking.
I don't.
Sorry,
I'm just saying, if things didn't need to be said, like, but we're just out there and we're just like, whatever. I don't give a fuck. I don't care about who I hurt. I don't care about what I have to say. And that's not, in my opinion, that's not very kingdom oriented. And I get that it's very stressful, and I get that it's very annoying for you to have to sit there and be like, who am I hurting with what it is that I'm saying, and that kind of stuff. But and there are going to be times where you're going to hurt people, and you're going to have to sit there and say, and you're going to have to be like, oh, my bad, like that was not intentional. And there may be a time where you're like, I still meant what I said, but I didn't mean for it to hurt you. You know what I'm saying? Because I get it, where some of you may be listening to this and you're like, we're in the fucking pansy generation where it's like, I can't say anything without it offending somebody. But and yeah, you can sit there and say, I was talking about this specific thing, and then somehow that hurt you. Like, again, what you talked about with who was it that you were saying spoke at Charlie Kirk's funeral, where it was like, they said something and then
Tucker Carlson, yeah,
Tucker Carlson, and then out of nowhere we're like,
story of the gospel of Jesus upset the Pharisees, and he said he ran around challenging the religious and political powers,
and out of nowhere Jews are fucking offended,
and never used the word Jews. Just said, I can imagine all these leaders getting in a room and said, well, how are we going to deal with this guy who's causing problems? And one of them said, I don't know, how about we kill him? And everyone's like, yeah, that'll work. And then, so that got turned into anti-Semitism, which somebody then came out, and some prominent Christian came out and said, actually, the Jews didn't kill Jesus, to which somebody correctly said, actually, no, they did. They absolutely did. It wasn't just the Pharisees and the Sadducees. It was also the Jewish mob at Barabbas's and Jesus's trial. And it was also you and me and everybody else.
And also
it was also Peter, who denied him 3 times. Like, he went in basically like, no, absolutely, there were Jews involved, but the lesson isn't that it's Jews, it's that everyone.
Well, and also, just so we're clear for anybody that needs information about this, so the Sadducees are appointed, so they're appointed by the Jewish Council as I was like, actually, the best way to represent that, for those of you that don't understand how Israel operated.
Jerusalem.
Well,
is that area.
The nation of Israel, or Jerusalem, how it operated underneath Rome, would be very similar.
Well, I'm separating that between the ones that were still in what we'd call Babylon.
Yeah. Extremely similar to Iran nowadays. Where you have a religious, because the Sadducees are Jewish. The Jewish Council and leaders recognize the Sadducees, and Rome, the emperor, recognizes the Sadducees as the political leaders and political and religious heads of that area. So they not only have political power as much as they have religious power as well.
Correct, which I think Tucker pointed out. When they'd finally had enough is when he went into the temple and got really angry at how the temple was being run. And
then Pharisees are the Sadducees wannabes. So
Yeah.
and that's slang term. That's not like the best way to describe it. But again, this is what I'm trying to break it down for you in this way to help you kind of understand where it is that the Pharisees want to be the Sadducees. They want the political acclamation from Rome. The Sadducees and the Pharisees get together, and they say that this is the best political move for our area. And so they decide to eliminate Jesus Christ.
Also, should be pointed out, when Jesus is coming into Jerusalem, he's given a big parade, which we call Palm Sunday now,
Yes.
because everyone who showed up that day waving palms thought he was the return of King David.
Yeah.
They did not show up there.
Emperor of Rome.
They did not show up there when he was put on trial. They did not show up there at Golgotha when he got... So, yes, it is true. The Jews killed Jesus. But if you have any kind of understanding of the gospel, every single person killed Jesus. We all killed Jesus. But to say that the Jews didn't because you're worried about anti-Semitism, I'm sorry. That's just not how it happened. They killed a fellow Jew. Everyone involves a Jew, except Pontius Pilate and the other Romans involved in the crucifixion. But all of the key characters are Jewish. It's just a fact.
Yeah, the trial that he goes through is through a Jewish council. He's not tried in the Roman.
No.
And again,
Pontius Pilate is one of the most artful, devious politicians ever. He manipulates this thing in a way where
he's not even manipulating. He's a man that's been in charge of what he deems as... He's like...
Well, there is a reason why we call washing our hands. He's trying to stay out of it. He does not want to be involved.
Yeah, but also... And that's his whole shtick. He's a representative of Rome. And so therefore he believes he is a part of this barbarian kind of setup where he's like, all right, all these people have this religious kind of stuff. And so I'm here to oversee the debt because
he's placating the Jews.
You are representing Rome. And so I am here as the representative of Rome. What do you guys want?
Well, at this point, the Jews were already rebellious to a degree.
Oh, no.
So he's very much...
It wasn't even to a degree. It was...
The trial is very much a placation again, he's washing his hands so he can... Again, it's very Machiavellian, and I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah, and actually...
He handles it in a very artful way of like, I am not getting myself involved in this. You guys want to kill him, you kill him.
Yeah, and it was very political, actually, on Pontius Pilate's part, which was probably better for Rome, where, again, he's sitting there and he's appeasing the people for what it is that they want for their... He's like, I'm actually here to kill this guy, but you guys really want this guy.
He's like, you know what? This guy might be the Messiah. If you want to kill him,
if this will appease you for the next couple of months, all right, that'll work for me.
Go ahead.
Please don't kill me.
Wow, you picked the thief. I didn't expect that. This Jesus guy doesn't...
He's like, you want me to return this guy to all of you? Oh. Fuck, I really don't understand this place.
I don't understand these people. I was really hoping for an appointment to Spain.
That guy was putting in for transfer.
Fuck.
ASAP. Boy. After that.
Boy.
Pontius Pilate is like,
the Gauls don't seem so bad compared to these guys.
And that guy was like, get me the fuck out of here. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
People complain about the Gauls.
This guy over here is just preaching out love and peace. But meanwhile, this guy's over here is fucking murdering people. And they're like, and they want that guy dead. I'm like, fuck.
Say what you will about the Gauls. They don't do that.
Yeah.
Anyways, so you're on a roll.
So when it comes to this element of... Sorry, I'm pouring my beer. Oh, we're drinking our third beer of the evening. We're drinking the Sound Czech. It is Horns. Oh, Horns Up, Devil Horn. Sorry, my bad. Beer Tour, BarrelHouse Brewing Company. 4.8% untraditional amplified Czech pills from BarrelHouse Brewing Company. BarrelHouse Brewing Company, I hate to say it, I haven't tasted it yet. Also, by the way, I do want to say this.
Oh, now. You have. You had it that night at BarrelHouse 3 weeks ago, didn't you? Was that what you were drinking?
No, I
thought you were drinking the Pilsner.
No, I never drank a Pils.
I thought you said the Pils, you'd had the Marzen and you said the Pils was better.
No, I had the Marzen, I had the Lager, and I had the Hells. No, not Hells. I would never have the Hells. Hef.
No.
And then I just kept that cycle going. Oh, well, actually, I only had 5 beers there, but
This tasted better after the Marzen. Did not taste as good after the other 2 beers we had.
BarrelHouse,
It's not
I'm
bad,
sorry.
though.
BarrelHouse, I'm sorry. I hold you in the same kind of realm place as Tioga Sequoia. I will say you have a really awesome place to hang out, but you are just like 50% of your beers I don't really want to drink.
They are the Starbucks of craft beer for around here, where it's all about, it's more about location and community and stuff like. And I give them credit for that, and that's at both places. That includes the Coast, where they have a fantastic outdoor place around the corner from Firestone.
Oh yeah,
where they usually have 2 or 3 food trucks. Beer's usually fresher, I will say there, and then they have an outdoor place, which I've never seen a concert there, but I've heard it's really good.
Well, their
beer's okay.
Their Oktoberfest this year, all 3 of those were.
Their beer's either and then every once in a while I'll taste one. I'm like, oh, that's really good, but unfortunately, it's fewer than usual.
But their Oktoberfest this last year were flavorless. They were
just
bad. I tried all 3, the Marzen, the Lager, and the Hef, and all 3 of them no good in my opinion.
It is a fun venue.
Well, and I thought to myself,
It's a good time. It's a good time when you go there, just in terms of good time.
And I felt bad. Well, I didn't feel bad, but I felt like after having that, because that was my first Oktoberfest, I was like, maybe I'm just not into these types of beers. I was like, maybe that's it. I was like, maybe I'm off on this. And then I go and I tried, which is funny because I say that, but meanwhile, I tried this one that day.
That one,
and I was like, this one was good. And then, I'm talking about the Tioga Sequoia Oktoberfest. And then I went to 1852 last weekend, and I was like, oh, this Marzen's delicious.
You had the Fieldwork last week.
BarrelHouses were terrible.
You had the Fieldwork last week, and that one was
it was
good.
okay. We talked about it.
It was also a little more on the less flavorful side.
Yeah, but not nearly as bad as BarrelHouses. BarrelHouses was like, dude, what the hell is happening here? Also, by the way, I do want to mention this about Back to Normal, because I hadn't tried it when we originally gave it the Back to Normal by the Fieldwork Pale Ale. I didn't care for this one. It was a little too funky for me, but I drank it all. But it wasn't. I'm not a huge fan. I wouldn't order that again.
I can see that. It's not what the flavor is, but some of those pale ales, well, yeah, some of those pale ales have kind of like a banana flavor, and that's not what it is, but it's just something that's got a little,
I don't know. It just wasn't for me. I was like, yeah.
It wasn't my favorite either. It doesn't match the description of what I ordered, so.
Yeah, no.
There was another one I was going to get from Fieldwork, and it was more.
I was glad to try it. I just, again.
It was all the fruits that you're not a big fan of, so now I'll try that one.
Grapefruit.
That one said something about being piney. Sorry, I didn't taste any pine in that.
No. I don't know.
Anyways,
back onto the topic. I think that when it comes to, I think that freedom of speech now is definitely something that we need to have a conversation with. And especially when we have the president of the United States threatening this idea of it's a privilege to be able to broadcast.
we got to be careful there. Finish it off, but you got to be careful. I'm going to throw a technicality at you, but go ahead.
No, actually what I'm saying is, then if that's the way that the system is set up, that the United States government is allowed to have say over who is able to broadcast because of X, Y, and Z, then we really need to take a look into what does privatized broadcasting look like without. And I was like,
okay, here's the rub. So here's the rub. ABC still broadcasts over the airwaves.
Yeah.
Those airwaves are leased by the government per the FCC Act of 1940 something, which basically literally created the FCC and deemed that the government owns both the radio airwaves and the TV airwaves. So UHF, VHF, AM, FM, they own those bandwidths. That should have never been established. Someone should have said, no, we can't own those because then we're in the business of regulating speech. So let private business figure out how to. You could easily. People say, well, how would you figure out someone owns it? You can easily set up private institutions where someone says, let's all get together and we're going to do a bidding process, which is what you do basically with the federal government, and people bid for the fucking bandwidth that they want.
Well, it's
so
it's currently how we view the internet. That it's
correct.
Yeah, exactly.
ABC, CBS, and Fox and NBC still fall under those guidelines because they're still transmitting over UHF, VHF. As soon as they would do away with that, the federal government cannot regulate them.
Well, that's how it should be. Well, in my opinion.
Now, according to the law now, I wouldn't put it past if Trump was around and they did that. Trump is a dumbass enough to be like, no, I can still regulate that. No, he can't. So that's the technicality on where ABC still falls in that thing where, I mean, there's no reason for the FCC chairman to be coming out and saying anything anyway that was gross and erroneous.
Yeah, and
but
actually, I was like,
he can come out and say it because we have a stupid FCC and because ABC, even though most of how people watch it is not over rabbit ears.
Well, and a guy that I don't necessarily agree with all the time, Ted Cruz came out and was like, you can't do that.
Yeah, he was correct.
Yeah.
There was a lot of Republicans who were like, no, that's too far.
Yeah, that was too far. That was, I don't, and again, we've talked about it on this podcast before where, again, I don't appreciate the language and the rhetoric of the Nazis, the dictatorship, all that kind of stuff. That was the first time that I had seen responses from Trump where I was legitimately, and I mean, I've had responses from Trump where I've been concerned, but that was one where I was like, that's okay. That one was a little too close to the dictator thing for me.
Well, and then you had Pam Bondi 2 weeks ago coming out and saying we're going to regulate hate speech. No, actually, you're not. The Supreme Court's been very adamant that hate speech is legal. There's been several Supreme Court cases. They're not ambiguous. Hate speech is protected.
Hate speech is protected. It's looked down upon,
which it should be, and so.
But that's where I'm saying that we have to find
they're both sides. We need an equilibrium where both sides. We need people to get out of the business of censoring speech, whether it be private and public actors, government and private. But we also need everyone involved in that speech. One needs to stop saying you're having a conversation online. You're not having a conversation. Yes, someone might be responding to whatever you tweeted or put on Facebook or commented on in the comments on TikTok or whatever. That's not a conversation. Conversations are face to face. We need to get back to conversations are face to face. Generally speaking, yes, we can have some exceptions. But this thing where we've transferred everything to being digital, but we're having a conversation. You're not having a conversation. You're just spouting whatever. And there are literally no consequences other than you maybe lose your job or you get kicked off X, which, because you said something. Again, going back to my bar thing, I think you're going to be, when you have conversations with people, whether it be at a bar or coworkers or whatnot, you either have to be more judicious in what you say or you're asked to explain why you said it.
Yeah.
Or there might be instances where, yes, you say you're sitting there and you're not saying anything and you're having drinks or dinner with coworkers with someone. There's a conversation going on about how kooky religion is while you're on a business trip in Tampa, and someone finally says to you, so, Colton, what do you think about religion? Well, actually, been a Christian my whole life and I, blah, blah, blah. But if you're asking me, Jesus died, rose 3 days later. He's Son of God. And I follow his teachings. I believe he comes first. And I'm trying to love my neighbor as I love myself. That's how I distill it. And if you get a bunch of people look at you and they're like, Colton's not our friend anymore, then you deal with it.
Yeah. And that's on them.
But I imagine a lot of them are going to be like, I've never actually met one of these crazy people.
Yeah.
I've heard about them. I've read about them on the internet.
Yeah.
I see crazy ones of them spouting off, but he's actually a cool dude. I want to ask more questions.
You're not on a street corner.
Yeah.
Spouting out hate speech.
No, we're not in a good spot. And again, I a lot of it, I say this as much as possible in order to give everybody a bit of a feeling like it's okay to be this way.
Yeah.
Where of the technology thing, like we don't understand how much of a mind fuck this technology is. And you've completely changed upside down how people talk and think and communicate. And the human, I do believe in evolution in that way, where where the brain literally has to biologically just rethink how to do things. And a lot of that leads to behavior. And we've changed things dramatically very quickly. And it's okay for us to say, on the one hand, we're not handling this very well, but on the other hand, say like, we got to all give ourselves a bit of a pat on the back and some leeway and say like, we're not going to figure this out. We're going to bumble our way through it. It's going to probably take 3 or 4 generations before it figures out. And if we don't have a 30 years war in the process, like what happened with the printing press, then we're doing a pretty good job. My concern is we are sprinting quickly towards the 30 years war in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Both here in the United States and everywhere else. And if you're hearing this, like, oh, when you hear, I am concerned about a civil war in the United States. And if you're hearing like, that's crazy, we need to tell ourselves the Civil War, if we have a Civil War, is not going to be like the Civil War of 1863 to 1865, where people are getting up and lying. Oh, it's going to be worse than that. It's going to be closer to the Revolution, where it's just going to be people you don't like all of a sudden in your neighborhood don't like you and firebomb your house. And it's going to be like Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And if we don't take that seriously, we can get there really quick.
Yeah.
So far, I think we've handled the Charlie Kirk thing fairly well.
So far.
There's been dipshits on both sides.
100%.
And I think the dipshits have been identified and criticized by both sides, people within each side. It's not one side saying you're crazy. I think there's been a lot of left-wingers who kind of said, like, that is not how we handle this. I didn't agree with anything Charlie Kirk had to say, but that is not where we go. Vice versa. And then the crosstalk as well. If anything, I'm more worried about the right, because there won't be one way this gets responded to. There will be one group that goes the way you and I would prefer.
Yeah.
There will be a group that gets more militant about this within Christian circles and right-wing politics, who gets more militant and says, I need to double down on the hate speech. I need to double down on they're the enemy. I need to double down that they hate God and everything for it. And so I'm going to use political forces, and we have to respectfully tamp that down and say, that is not the way to go.
Well, and for me, I was like, be praying for me. I've been honest about how my mother is with some of this stuff. And so it's going to be a conversation this week. My mother comes down and hang out with our son and daughter on Friday, and she'll be here till next Friday. And we need to have a conversation of just, hey, Mom, I don't think that this is good. And I'm not saying she has a huge following or anything like that. But again, it's just about having that conversation of just saying, I feel like you're dehumanizing. And I was like, I hope that God is in that conversation, and not in a bad way, where like,
yeah, you're not like convicting her or something.
No, or anything. Just be like, hey, I'm not here to point fingers or anything like that. I just think that there's a better way of doing things. And I think that right now it's not a great way of doing things. So I don't know.
It brings to mind the charity my wife's involved in, Salt and Light. That's what we're called to do, Salt and Light. Salt makes things better, tastes better, the world better, and light takes out the darkness. And that's what we're supposed to do as Christians, is always be salt and light. And that's one of the things every Christian, including American Christians, struggle with, is trying to be that person. Just again, I hope it wasn't a right winger who killed him. Oh, I sure hope it was a progressive, because that's going to make the progressives look really bad. That is not being a person of salt and light. It's going to happen. I'm not telling you to, make you feel, but when it creeps in, we've got to tell ourselves, no, that's not it. pray for the wife. It's pray for the 2 kids. It's pray for the country. Pray for everybody that this nonsense will stop, that we walk away, that we stop making politics the thing.
Pray for the sick person that decided to pull the trigger. Pray for
Yeah.
that person. Pray for that person and say, I hope that you were able to find humanity in all of this.
Can we talk about this for a
changes.
second?
Yeah.
By all accounts, his parents turned him in, his father.
It's gotta be
Can
awful.
you imagine that? Again, that is not what we depict in our culture. Our culture is based on family first, always family first.
Oh, yeah.
Every single TV show, movie show is family member gets fucked up, does something illegal, and it is family first, blood. I do everything I can to protect particularly if it's a child of mine. And for that dude, by all accounts, he went to his elders in his LDS church and asked them for guidance, and they told him to go to the sheriff, who I think he knew, and he did that. I pray for that family. They're going to regret that in some ways. The human side of them is going to regret that for the rest of their lives, and everybody listening to this needs to keep them in their prayers. They're going to need therapy through that, either through their church or a therapist. I mean, I would hope that in that moment I had the guts to be like, son, I got to turn you in. But very few of us do.
Yeah, I agree.
And the dude did it.
Yeah. And they need love, support. And again, so does their son. And so
does their son. We need to be praying that there's somebody who works for a prison ministry who's going to reach out and be someone who shows up at whatever prison he gets assigned to, who shows up every week and says,
San Quentin,
Jesus still loves you. And that was one of the things. We had a worship arts pastor at the church we were at before, and he was very traditional in his music and theology. I mean, way too traditional for me. But that dude went down to Corcoran Prison, one of the worst, every other weekend, I think, and was prison minister there.
Yep.
And I think part of me has always told myself, if like I got really rich or just became retired somehow, like you're not working anymore and you got time on your hands, be like, that would be the thing that really is the one to go down and just love on dudes who need loving on and might be spitting in your face for a while, telling you, I don't need your Christianity, get the hell out of here. But I mean, that's the ultimate redemption of people who are convicted justly, or even, doesn't matter, justly or unjustly. They're in prison for doing something.
Yep.
And they need someone still there praying for them and telling them they're still there. They might be a prisoner here on earth, but they're not eternally. They're not with their maker.
He's long paid for his crimes, but now he's there because he's a victim of the time. So
it's him to make. It's his job to make the kingdom where he's at, which is a shitty place, which is an American prison. Good Lord. Our prisons are the worst. I mean, they're not the worst, but they're pretty bad.
Yep.
Wow, we're only at 2:18.
Nice.
I thought this was on pace. I thought to be like a 3-hour podcast, but this is pretty average for us. So
it's not bad.
All right. Well, thanks for everybody for listening. And if you're still listening to this after 2 hours and 18 minutes and you don't like the show, well, then you can go to hell. I mean, seriously.
half an hour was